We'd like to welcome you to the April 24th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. If we still please stand, we'll pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almost caught. It's nice to have you standing in, Jen, because when I was down that end and I had Rick and Jack, I could barely see the flag.
I hear you.
Okay, department head items. We don't have any department heads here, so I assume we have no items. So we're going to move into the approval of the minutes from last week. I had a couple of small things on page 1 myself. Yes. About 2/3 of the way down, Chairman Close stated the board had a non-public early to begin discussion, so it changed being to begin. And then in the next paragraph down, when asked what keeps, it should have said her interested, it said him. We're talking about Melissa Drury, so just changing him to her there. Anybody else have anything on page 1?
No.
Page 2, I only have one little thing. In the big paragraph, underneath the Chase Park fees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up, just changed schedule to schedule. The fee schedule as a whole. So I just crossed off the E. Anybody else have anything there?
I had this sentence here kind of didn't make sense.
Which one? What does it say?
He also wondered about opening the beach season pass to other towns and if it would lead to crowding. That's what I put in. I don't know. The comma, would that lead to crowding?
Well, I think that's talking about the chairman in the last sentence.
Right.
The sentence before it.
Wondered about opening the beach season pass to other towns. Would that lead to crowding?
If you put a semicolon there after towns, would that be appropriate?
Yeah, either that or just add a new sentence. But that would work. Does that work for you?
Yep. Memorial Day.
Capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't have anything on page 3. Anybody else have something on page 3?
There was no mention of the bid from Northeast. I know you can assume that it was $72 by the way it all read.
Okay, so you're suggesting we include
Yeah, and Northeast, just like it was down here, mechanics for
okay.
$72 if we just add it to the other. The next closest,
Why don't we just make a new sentence?
okay.
Northeast Mechanics bid $72 a ton.
Right, that's fine.
All set on that page?
Mhm.
see that page? It doesn't convert sometimes. I see the wrong thing. Oh, okay, good, thank you.
Page 4, I just included one thing that wasn't there for clarity. In the last paragraph, it says Steve Roberts, should say stated,
Yes.
that he was on the building committee that worked on the DPW garage. The town voted, and I just inserted in 2015, not to allow engineering plans to be drawn up, because it's just to define when. Anything else on that page? Okay, on page 5, I didn't have anything. Anybody?
No.
6? 7?
Move to approve the April 17th, 2017 minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Manifest? I move to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payable checks dated April 27th, 2016, as included in the following manifests. Payroll, $50,019.28, and accounts payable for $70,450.02, 4 cents, excuse me, for a total of $120,469.32. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll keep that one in minutes. Now, we have no administrator, so we have no administrative report here today. One thing, I have a volunteer application for Steve Flanders to continue on the cable committee. Beth, do you know anything about whether he was gonna invite it in, or?
No, I did not. I did not know he was.
Steve has been on the cable committee for a long time. I don't think we need to interview him, so.
No. Just want to make a motion.
Sure.
I move to appoint Stephen Flanders to the cable committee for as a full member for the term of 3 years.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And since he's not here, I can't swear him in, so he can see the town clerk for that. Public comment.
Make a change. Hi, I was just down and I was looking at the roof on the barn on East Street. Well, maybe I should introduce myself. Sherry Burdick, president of the Weare Historical Society. And it looks like the whole section of the barn closest to the road, that roof needs to probably be sealed with, it's a mixture you buy in a 5-gallon can and paint it on. Probably needs a couple coats put on it this year.
It's a metal roof.
Yeah, just the first section of the barn, not the next to the old section. So I have made a couple of phone calls. I haven't heard back from anybody, but I just made them this morning, so. I think at this point, the Historical Society is willing to buy the material, but they really don't want to have to foot the bill for the labor this time. We just finished renovating the inside of the Stone Memorial Building this last year. And we still have one more item left on our list at that building, and that's to take all the windows out, clean them all down, take all the putty off, replace the broken glass, put them all back together and put 2 coats of oil, 2 coats of paint on them. So that'll be a
labor intensive.
This summer for us, and, or, you know, in the next month or so, I'd like to try to get at least one room done and then do the other room later on, but, I don't know how the board feels about that, but I said, you know, that's what the group overall has discussed, that the Historical Society be willing to pay for all the product, which I imagine would be a couple of 5-gallon buckets at least. And I'm guessing it's about $150 or in that
Ish, yeah.
kind of in that
Yeah.
place and some whatever, so.
Well,
I don't expect that it's gonna be a big thing to put a couple coats on it. I'm guessing it might be 2 days, but it may be that the person, whoever we get to do it, may want a lift, which would be a few $100s a day for the lift. But probably a safer way of doing it than climbing around on a metal roof and taking a tumble off it.
Yeah.
You know, even though they were required to wear, OSHA requires them to wear harnesses and stuff, but. So I don't know how the board feels about that.
but we'll have to get some prices.
Well, it'll be well under 5,000, I'm sure of that, Tom.
I hope so. Like 500.
Oh, it'll be more than 500 to put 2 coats on, because whoever does it's gonna be there a couple of days probably.
Yeah. Well, if it goes over 1,000, we have to get multiple bids on it.
Okay,
Not really bids, but quotes. If it goes into the 5,000 range, then we have to put it out to bid. But we can just do it by getting 3 quotes
okay.
and do it that way.
The other thing that I'm looking at was the Clinton Grove Academy, and we've got over a 6-inch drop in the floors up there. Those timbers really need to get jacked. That building needs to get jacked up and straightened out, and those timbers have got to get replaced. They're all rotted. They're gone. I mean, they're falling over. So, I mean, I haven't run it this spring, but last summer I ran a laser level, and we're about 6 inches off from a third of the way into the building to the far end. There's over a 6-inch drop on the floor.
I'm trying to picture when we went under the building, when you were writing the grant for that.
Yeah.
What is it that is rotted?
The whole,
upright
the posts are missing. All the upright posts are rotted and
upright
gone.
posts.
Yeah. So I did get a quote, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, from somebody here in town to do it. I think I brought it,
Yeah,
mentioned it to you, but we'll have to send that. We'll have to go out for bids again. It's been over a year since that was given to me, and so we'll have to do something about getting that out to bid. But that really should get done. We shouldn't let it keep going. The other thing I think that's important up there is that maybe getting some stone windows put on those windows. We just had a lot of them. They just took all the old putty off those windows at Clinton Grove and repaired all them and primed them and painted them good, and they're in really pristine condition. And I think if we could get some storms on that this year to protect those windows that were just all done, would be a good idea. Because they usually say half the value of the window is what you end up paying to get those puttied and scraped and primed and stuff. So I just think those couple items ought to get done this year if we can at all accommodate it, and maybe get that roof sealed up. The Historical Society will take care of all the windows, the new chains or ropes, whatever we put in them, the new glass going in it, and the painting and the supplies. We'll take care of that.
I drove up there yesterday after we talked. Where did that break-in occur? Did they actually go up through the bottom? They came out through the 2-holer?
Yeah, that's been screwed down pretty good, so I don't know that they'll be back up there again. But right away, thought if it's, maybe Thursday or Friday, I'd go up, but double check, but anyway. And the window, I told you that one window was pushed in, and that's been all screwed in. You saw with the marks on the clapboards.
Yeah, I didn't notice those, actually. I was trying to figure out, because I was looking for a broken window or something.
No.
It wasn't, it was just out of place, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing I could figure out is they must have come down and up.
Yeah, well, there was a big, good-sized rock rolled out that was in there, and whoever a couple of people probably to roll that rock out. It's a couple 100 pounds. I mean, I guess somebody pretty hefty could do it, but they moved the rock out. The door's broke, little back door there on the by the bottom was broken in half and thrown in there, and then they went up through. And like I said, I took some scrap lumber and we screwed it.
Now, the beams, not the uprights, but the floor joists,
Those appear to be fine.
those look like they're good.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just,
Yeah, and we may have to do something with that back door that goes underneath the building, because that looks like they reamed on that quite a lot, and it's pushed in about probably this much. They've actually bent the padlock thing, so may have to do something about that, but we'll look at it here in the next few days and figure out what we want to do with that.
I had gone by that building at 2:00 that same day, because I was with one of the people that went with Sherry to see the building later in the day. And there was a cream-colored truck out front. I mean, I didn't see anybody or see anything, but they were parked
Yeah,
out front, so I did talk to the police about that, so,
yeah, I did. There was nobody there when I got there.
right.
You know, like I said, I wouldn't have, first time I'd been up there, that, you know, to go in, even walk around the building this spring. Usually I do it in the fall several times. When I'm going through, I just stop and walk around to check, and, but evidently, well, there were always those people.
Yep.
actually, probably fortunate, because it's so isolated there that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wasn't there what about some type of system that we could have there that,
Well, there's no electricity,
oh,
so,
that's right.
but you could probably, you may be able to do it. I think you're still gonna have to have electricity, and that, the hope is that we can end up getting electricity back in the building, because there's no lights in there. And it'd be nice to get it fixed up to the point that we could use it 9 months out of the year, even if we didn't use it in the dead of winter to heat it, that we just use it during the mild weather. But, you know, you're talking probably a couple $100,000 to get it up to that.
Codes.
Well, not even the code, because it's a historic building, but I mean, you gotta have a bathroom in there if you're gonna use it.
Right.
And,
yeah, but even with just some electricity, you could have a monitored alarm.
well, right, yeah, yeah,
Even if it was just, not expense, except for running the wire over there to it, it
Mm.
wouldn't be a big,
yeah, it probably wouldn't be a big thing. It'd be nice if it could be put in underground, you know. And I know the town probably could
Dig the trench.
dig down 18 inches, that's what code is for an electrical line, and we could get the material and put it in underneath, so. And once that downstairs is properly fixed, that probably needs some fill put in there and a cement pad put in there, because at some point, if you're gonna do any work, that's where your mechanical room ought to be.
Right.
do
So-
we have an alarm system in the stone building?
No, we do not.
Because,
We have talked about it a couple of times, about getting one in there, because,
yeah, because we've got
you've got,
everything else. We finally got one into the town hall,
right.
so that's monitored. So if there's any kind of a fire danger there, it's called in immediately, and as well as
Probably be a good idea. I don't know if you could hook it right in. You've got the cabling over at the library,
I
right?
was just gonna ask about
the
that.
library, the town hall, and this building, and the safety complex all have it. And I'm sure that we'll also,
I think it'd be a good idea,
yeah,
yeah, at this point, to do that, yeah. But those are 3 or 4 things that I really think are kind of things that ought to be done, this summer without letting it go. I mean, and I know that we've got the town hall doors that are gonna get put in,
I was gonna bring that up under,
and then the trim on, some of the trim on the town hall, so I don't know what we have for money, the scope of money the town has for putting a new roof on the bell tower and putting the spires back up, and
well, unfortunately.
that roof is 50-ish, 50, going on 50 years old that's up there, and I'm not even sure what's up on the up above, on the very top. It's maybe a heavy rubber membrane, I really don't know, but
It's shingles.
up on the very top?
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
yeah, it is. Actually,
That-
there's a little hatch.
Oh,
It goes, not that I'm gonna go up on it.
no, no. I've been up in the bell tower several
Yeah.
times, but I didn't go
Well,
any farther.
Yeah, we went up in a bell tower several times here a couple of years ago. When we
yeah.
were looking at what had to be
Mhm.
done. That's another thing, inside the bell tower too, there needs to be painting done. Everything is solid in there, but
Right.
the paint is all cracked up on
Right.
the inside.
Yeah.
But there is a little hatch that goes to the very top. that You
Yeah.
can stick your head up and take a look.
Yeah. I was just
If
thinking.
you'd like to do that.
Nah, I think I'll pass. I'm high enough up in the bell tower without going any farther, but I wasn't sure what was up there, like I said, but I'm just thinking if it's, those shingles were put on in the early 70s, my understanding those spires were done at the same time. So that even if those were 50-year shingles and they put heavy tar paper underneath it and the whole work, I mean, at some point that needs to get done, and probably sooner than later before it starts leaking. And I don't know, I'll try to get a hold of him, the guy that did all the work on who did the bell tower in Clinton Grove. They put a 20-ounce copper roof on that, which is good for about 100 years. And I think, it's not much square footage, so it's not any,
No.
probably much different than shingling it.
Yeah, the upper section of that tower actually sets on the shingles.
Yeah. That bottom, that ledge there where the little fence was, when I was up there, I just put my foot out because the screen is kind of pulled back, and I just put my foot out on that. It's pretty spongy, so I don't know if it wasn't wet underneath, but I don't know if there's a couple layers of shingles and it's kind of,
Yeah, I think I think the roof itself is solid. But below that, the clapboards are all coming apart. And we gotta get to that, really. Even if we can't afford the spires right now, to preserve what's there with the clapboards and,
I don't think it would be that expensive to build those spires up out of some composite. I really don't. I don't think it's that big a deal. Make a jig up and,
well, that certainly is.
but we gotta have the money to pay to have the re-roofing done at the same time, even if you have all the spires
Yeah.
ready to go.
I don't have my book with me tonight, but we had about $70,000 available for work on town buildings overall. And we only got one thorough bid on the work to be done over there. And it was broken down into pieces, depending on what the projects were, but it was like $170,000 to do everything. I mean, that was,
You're talking about doing the rakes on the edge of the roofs, the rakes that are gone, and putting on a new roof on the bell tower.
you know.
You're talking corner boards too that are in pretty rough shape?
corner boards,
Yeah, the window reglazing.
Yeah,
that's-
the big thing there, big expense was the windows and deciding what we're gonna do with them. And but at any rate,
I do have a call in, and hasn't gotten back to me on that either, but it might be something that Tim Maskeel might work on during the winter
Right.
months. Do a side this year, a side next year.
yeah,
You
They
know.
did such a good job in the windows up to the.
Clinton Grove is just pristine now. The work he did up there is beautiful. I mean, that wasn't a ton of money. I think that with 2 coats of paint was, what, 17,700, I believe.
they're in rough shape, and not just the putty, but the mechanisms are broken.
Well, yeah, they rot out. Most of them
The
are
storm
rolled.
windows that are on there, some of them are pieces that are missing. And
Well,
we
I
got
think
one-
at some point those storms ought to get replaced.
they'll have to be, or I don't know where we're going with it, but the windows are definitely a big expense.
Yeah, and
A big piece of it.
that might be something, like I said, I've got to call into Tim, and that might be something that he might be willing to work on during the winter months.
Right.
You
Never
know,
know.
maybe do the downstairs this year, and you only got a few thousand in it versus
Yeah.
big bucks. I mean, I think you have to look to get people that are gonna do a really great job and gonna last and take care of it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else for public comment?
Frank Campana. I want the board to try real hard to think back to your last meeting. I say that facetiously, kind of.
Well, we have
I know a
minutes
week
here,
is a
so-
long time, but to some selectmen. And my comments in regards to the awarding the bid for the highway truck, I think Benji did a good job in probably spec'ing the truck out. I have confidence that he knows what he's doing. Not that I can say he's doing it right or wrong, but, I have the confidence. And I think the town made out pretty good for what we're paying for it. And it sounds like a relatively reasonable price. I don't know equipment prices, but it sounds reasonable. But my comment is, me as an individual, I find myself in the same predicament with a highway purchase as last year with the loader. There was, last year with the loader, there was about $25,000 for a trade-in for the old one, which went into that capital reserve. I know there's two schools of thought on capital reserve money. I'm one of the more conservative. I'd rather have my money back now, and then you can ask for it later from me. But respective, I guess, in the sense it is what it is. But it looks like, and I don't know if anybody on the board, out of curiosity, just did the math to see, what balance there is going back into that capital reserve fund. I hate to ask as a question, not as a debate, but to get a response.
I don't have that figure tonight. We could certainly get it. but-
Okay. Well,
And I'm not arguing or whatever, but
me neither.
there's going to be a need. You'll see another truck next year on the ballot because we've got several of them that are 13, 14 years old. So, it's going to be an ongoing thing, and that's why we worked hard with the Finance Committee and in order to get everybody behind it this year, because it's one thing to get behind on the purchase of a $25,000 car, quite something else if you're behind on $200,000 trucks and have to do those in multiple trucks in 1 year.
Right.
So,
I agree.
So, that whatever residual amount that is there would, of course, be there for next year.
Okay, well.
And I know we disagree on that, but
Right, and I said that at the outset, so, that's fine. But I did that calculation, and again, I can always be corrected, but it actually is about $36,000, which was about the same as, that was applied to the truck overall this year, which was around 35. Well, it was around $36,000 that's going back into that. And the only caveat to that is it's the selectmen's discretion. How much of that to use, as you just explained, for next year? How much of that to use, if any? So this year you did use, the major portion of it, the residual that was in that capital reserve fund. But the board has changed, and with all due respect to Selectman Hippler, there is a new sheriff in town. So, you may decide, you may have the majority of the board that don't want to use any of that money. You may want to save it for another year. Let it collect for another year. And then, tax me even more. So that's only my comment, that's my only comment, and we'll see what happens, with that residual money that's left over there.
yeah, I'm just, it's to the advantage of the board to apply that to the new purchase because it is an incentive for taxpayers to approve it if you have that in hand. So I think you can rest easy on the fact that it'll probably end up being applied toward the next purchase, because that's.
Well-
I, okay, I know.
That's, I'd like to take you up on that, but, I wouldn't buy a lottery ticket on it.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Anybody else have anything? Okay, correspondence. Anybody have anything under other business? Yes.
I believe in the minutes it says something about contacting the bidders for the town hall doors and the gazebo.
Right, there's a gazebo, I'm not, I don't know what Naomi's done on that. We
Okay.
had the two people put in bids for it, but the reason that we went back and had this engineering group draw up specs is because they were totally different. One started with actually moving it and putting a slab down and putting it back on that, and the other one talked about the repairs of the structure without that. So what the new specs have is not a slab, but I don't know what they're called, but those concrete abutments that are set in, they're like sonotubes, except they're pre-made. And so set that in and then put it back on those, and then do the repair. So that's what we're looking at, so that it's apples to apples when we go out for, and Naomi was gonna go back to the same tool and see, this is what we want, now we know what we're doing. But, yeah,
This is
That's the spec that team engineering came up with to, yeah.
okay.
After we got the two
Can I
bids
get a
that were,
copy of that after the meeting?
yep, after the two bids were so far off from each
Okay.
other, work description wise. That's
Well,
what
in the
team engineering came up with.
meantime, I believe that Naomi had said there were 5 people that wanted to bid, I don't know on which, but whether it was the doors or but Tim Matheson got me, or gave me this ad that he had found, and, this gentleman we went over to the, building, and he looked at the building, he's very interested in doing all the projects that are there. He's out of New Boston, but how does one get put on the bid list?
well, Naomi.
Absolutely.
Well,
contact me.
unfortunately, this was Friday.
No.
So, but I don't know whether it's been put out.
No.
I don't believe so, no.
No.
Okay, because he's insured and with general liability and workers' comp, certified EPA, renovator, residential construction services include, and then he's done municipal and commercial historic renovations. He was going to try and be here tonight to ask you to be placed on the bid list.
Yeah, we can do that. But what we need to do, with two different things, the gazebo,
Mhm.
if he's interested in that, fine, he'll give us 3. But, and then of course we'll need to track down references and so forth.
Right,
The other 2 bids on the gazebo, the gazebo, were local people who we know the quality of their work.
right.
The doors, actually Sherry and I talked on the phone yesterday or the day before, and what we need on that before we call somebody in and say, can you install the doors, is some specifics. We might not need team engineer to do it, but we gotta have some very specifics of what we want done on those, so that we don't just start the same
This is the gentleman.
thing over again. Have some of the same problems all over
Okay.
again, so.
Actually, Sherry was also there and kind of explained to him some of the things that needed to be done. We took him out into the outside sheds to where the spires were, but I don't know if you want him to speak to you, to see if he'd like
Well, we can,
that.
we're running way ahead here tonight, we're almost finished. So anybody who wants to talk, please.
Okay, well, his name, It's Madison. I wanted to read, it's not Matheson. It's Mattison. Greg, and he's from New Boston, and he's got Madison Contracting.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing where? At the podium?
That's it.
Yes,
Got it. So, since I just came in there kind of
right.
at the last second, I'm
I just kinda
assuming.
went through telling them that you'd gone up to the building up there.
Yeah.
And you were interested in being on the bid list to put in a bid, and I kind of gave you credentials a little bit. I didn't get into the Mont Vernon and all that business if you wanted to.
Sure. So Greg Madison, my wife Lori and I run a small GC business out of New Boston, Madison Contracting. So I do both residential and light commercial, municipal, industrial government. In the last few years, since applying for and getting approved for the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, I'm finding myself very commonplace in a lot of historical projects, besides my traditional residential that I've been doing through the years. So anyways, I was invited over a couple days ago, Friday evening, by Tim to look at the doors on the old town hall. So the remedy seems pretty straightforward over there, especially since you've got the new blanks laying over in the gym. That seems a pretty straightforward repair to do it a little different than the way it was done, I think. Do you want me to share my thoughts on that, or would you like me just to kind of give them a little more overview
Probably not so much
of my
in
company,
detail.
or?
What we can be sure that you get an opportunity to put in a price for us on it.
For that project or other opportunities?
Yeah, but I mean, the two pressing ones right now for us are those doors. And we were talking about the gazebo just before you came in, because that's a different kind of project, because it has to have basically foundation supports.
Mhm.
And then whatever repairs have to be done to the wood structure itself. So those will be the two that we know we have to get done within the next few months this summer. Other parts of the town hall, and there are a lot of, I've got a list of like 12 or 13 things that have to be done with the town hall. Some major, like we were just talking before you came in, of the windows. And there's also a rod around the cornice boards in the back. We don't know how deep that goes.
Mhm.
The corner boards need to be replaced. There has to be repairs done, a lot of repairs on the bell tower, including, though, just to hold it in place so it doesn't go any further. The clapboards around the base of it are coming loose, and you know, and again, another thing, we were talking about the roofing on it, what has to be done. It's a double level shingle roof with the upper part of the tower sitting on the shingles on the lower part, so it's kind of tricky, I would think.
Commonplace for us, my company. I found myself up from basically the Mid-Atlantic region up through being utilized as a consultant, as the physical carpenters doing the project. We are considered design build contractors, especially on the historic side. Pretty much whatever we encounter and find. If I need structural engineering, I have resource for that, pretty much right at hand. I am an environmental engineer by discipline. I'm not a PE, but I respect and utilize the engineering community a ton for my historic repairs, especially in my old timber frame work. I'm also in cahoots with fellow New Boston Glenn Dodge and a lot of other awesome Jerry Kennedy timber framers from around. So I'm a city kid. I'm second generation carpenter from Albany, New York. But when I come over here to our beautiful New England buildings, once in a while I say, oh, I haven't seen that one before. So I don't have to go too far for resources, right? But if I actually need structural engineering to incorporate today's engineering strength pieces of lumber, right, engineered lumber, to support, repair, etc. Being sensitive to, in a historical environment, what are the materials I'm using for the repair, right? So it's very commonplace for me to sit in a historical society / group to work with them to get approved the materials, the means and methods that I want to utilize for the repair. So that's a big part of what my business encounters, right? And that's the challenge. We don't want to lose the integrity of the structure, not just architecturally, but structurally. And how do I bring today with yesteryear? And that's what we succeed at most times. There's always the toughie, but that's the personality of my business. So I just, cold coming in the door, it's like, who is this character? But that's what I really do a lot. I'm a facilitator, we step back. I use the group of people that I surround myself by for concepts, ideas, materials. You're mentioning a roof, right? That might be tricky. Okay, great. We'll use a combination of certain materials. It all goes back to what's the budget, right? What can we accomplish? I am not one to be interested in projects that we come up, the group, including the customer, comes up with a good plan, but we're going to make a bad decision just on budget, right? So, especially if I'm up on a steeple or somewhere that we don't want to be back up there for a long, long time. So I try my damnedest to suggest and work with, but once in a while I do find myself saying, not for me. I want to help, but
You want it right.
Yeah, because that's everybody's goal generally, right? So, but I'm a general contractor, which means I work under budgets all day. But so that usually is commonplace. And even by no means in our town buildings that we work on from community to community is there any open checkbook. It's generally small grants, small donations, whatever, right? I can also facilitate in grant programs and things like that, perhaps reaching out to some people that we might know. But anyway, so I just want to be a little more clear. It's not just a carpenter standing here that has nail bags on most of the day. It's a project manager, and like I discussed earlier, I do a lot of municipal. So I'm legit by the book through and through as far as insurances, billing. I'm not a union company, but I am very, very used to certified payroll, using prevailing wage rates in certain environments if required. A lot of times I don't find that's the case working in New Hampshire. But those are all common buzzwords for me, right? So, because that's, New Hampshire is a very interesting state to work in from town to town. There really is no congruency between towns. We have our state fire marshal, but each town is different. And it's usually up to the people that they have coming out of private industry with the backgrounds that volunteer, right? So from town to town. And I can really support or add to any level that you might require. So.
One of the things too that we noticed while we were there on Friday is that the stage back door is like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch ajar. I mean, while it's locked.
Right.
And
Yeah,
one of
definitely
your
that-
suggestions
definitely
was
that
to
feeling.
try and save the one
front
of the
door,
old,
perhaps. Yeah.
one of the older doors.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, it definitely needs some love. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
But some things have to change. The method of install with the butts on the front doors with the hinges. There should basically be some type of, I feel, a stainless steel insert in behind the jamb, if you will, right, and not rely. No, those are big doors. They weigh a lot. So some type of threaded fastener as opposed to a wood screw. I mean, just basic stuff. And it's not like we're ripping the whole frame out and everything. But those are what I mean, some means and methods I would maybe suggest of trying to achieve some longevity.
Now we've at board level over the last years, a couple of years, this past budget season, our our funding for the government buildings was voted down. There was $75,000 there. It was voted down. So we're approximately right now about 70,000 in our account for government buildings and maintenance. With that said, there was a lot of discussion at town meeting about that, of what do you want to do with the money, and it was like, well, we do this, we do, emergency boiler, emergency whatever, more reactive than proactive sometimes. We asked, we went over there with a couple contractors a couple years ago, it was a couple years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2015.
Right. And we made up a list, of our concerns, and they looked at it. We only really got one quote back, and it was astronomical. And where we like to, we're a bid after 5,000. If you could, again, we'll provide you that list of our concerns. Obviously, Jan and Sherry went over there with you, but I'm sure that we can get that.
Tim.
Okay, and Tim, I'm sure that we can get that list up and give it to you and present it to you, and see what your take is on it. Again, I like the fact that you're here, you're putting your foot forward. The fact that you are on the list for historical buildings, that's huge. Keeping the historical means of that building the way it is huge to the town, and I'm 100% supporting that. And I know that good labor isn't cheap. I understand that. So again, I'm 100% on board with having you get on on the bid for the jobs. I never would have thought putting stainless behind it, threaded, but makes perfect sense for a heavy door, like you said. So, like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing your bid come forward.
Yeah, and I can be used in a lot of different capacities. I mean, the community that I've worked in the most through the years, it happens to be Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
And they've used me in all different, and specific to the McCullum building is the one I...
right, and we'd be looking for
I've
references, obviously, on the,
Yep, sure.
So,
So,
absolutely.
Okay, so...
Hey, Greg,
What's up, Tim?
could you speak to about the difference between redoing the windows and the cost of new? And
Okay.
Just give them a brief, the historical differences, about the AZAC for all the upper structure, the spires and whatnot.
Sure.
That they meet.
Sure.
Historical.
So we find ourselves a lot with what materials to use that, like, the cornice work and the returns and things like that up high, is that we don't want to get up to every 2 years and paint maybe or every 5-10 and have to do repair maintenance on. So we are able to get approved by a lot of historical societies the use of today's materials, as long as we can show that they make sense, and that's usually for longevity, and also that they're not going to stick out like a sore thumb, right? like a vinyl window, for example, with grills between glass. Okay. So there's different types of PVC product that are out there, but some specifics that are solid core that I can put on my CNC machine and shape into anything under the sun. And put a vinyl acrylic paint on, and we can have vinyl acrylic paint perform better than on any type of exotic wood or wood for that matter, a cedar or a teak or a mahogany. So that's one of the examples that I offer, right, would offer in certain areas, right? As regarding windows are a huge thing, period. I was involved in a project down at Fort Leslie McNair down in Washington, which is Grant Hall, which is the building where the Lincoln Spiriters were tried and hung. And Obama's one of his first projects in office, he wanted to get that courtroom going back. So I was brought down there to do some pretty intricate selective demo and do an assessment of the windows. The windows in that building, it was what do we do with them? And they were in pretty rough shape. So we ended up on that one repairing some and then getting some reproduced. And it was almost a wash for the new ones versus the repair. But the repair and the reglazing made the historical societies very happy, as opposed to just replacing. So it's a balance, right? So and I've sat in all meetings, absolutely not, Greg, we're not gonna put aluminum in, blah, 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 or, how can we make it look better? So, a lot of, sometimes the budgets where the grants are coming from dictate that as well. Sometimes we have federal grants that are very, very stringent on the wording of how the money's gonna be used for historic reproduction. And that's where we might have 9 tasks to do in a budget, and because of the rules of the game of that day, we only get to do 4. So that's what I help
Now,
make too.
have contacts for these, for grant writers A and B, the grants that are out there? You have a good knowledge of the grants that are out there?
Pretty decent. They're kind of fluid. They kind of change, right? I'm not today did something change from 6 months ago? I have my contacts up in the state, and there's only a group of 4 of them, and it never hurts to ask.
Right, absolutely.
What's available.
Don't.
So, and I could absolutely,
Okay.
since I rely on them for a piece of my livelihood. They stick their neck out all the time by advertising my placard on the state website. It's an easy for me to ask them. It kind of works, yeah. I think that's the way they want it to work.
Right.
They want me to bring customers, right, and or state entities in there that might not know their resources are out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The resources are out there. We just may not know about all of them. Right.
So I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but it would be one of my jobs to show you an alternative to perhaps just using straight on pine for something that might have been used, right? But I can prove perhaps that, the old growth pine that we used originally to build the structure, I can't get that today, right? And that's why it's going to fail faster, and that's why I want to offer a different product perhaps, right, to be used, whatever that project may be, right? Like the spires, for instance, right? We might want to go to a completely different material up there.
Just to keep the longevity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So, but it's a sensitive area that a specification has to be spelled out in detail, so any of the parties involved, right? So it's like, hey, I didn't know that thing was going up there. That really can't happen. So that's really commonplace in my world. So did that.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good. No, sounds good.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming over. One of the reasons that our warrant article was defeated this year was because there were people who stepped forward and said, this should be a separate project. This isn't just out of your repair fund.
Right.
So it should be a warrant article for a specific project for the town hall. So that may be a direction we go, in which case we would need to kind of background it.
Yeah, Mount Vernon has used me numerous times to prepare for town meeting objectives that they want. Yep, that's pretty normal. So,
Sounds good to me.
all right, so,
So you'll be on the bid list for the town hall doors.
great.
And anything else, like the gazebo, if we end up doing that too?
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing I don't look at. And not even just structural, it can be site work issues, it can be drainage, it could be logistics, pretty much anything. We got a big rat that's won't leave this area of the building, what can we do to keep him out? We've done some crazy stuff, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Send him over, put him on the board.
Yeah.
And the other item was, Greg said he has availability to start within 3 weeks on the door project.
Yeah, that seemed pretty straightforward.
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what you said.
Greg said he can answer that.
As far as the time is of the essence moment to get these doors before they fall off, I could jump in there, probably try to remedy that pretty expediently. Again, my resources are local, pretty much Milford, New Boston, Weare, all my guys are right around here. So when I say, I want to use a stainless steel block, right? I'm going down to Bob LaPointe's shop down in New Boston, and we're going to mill it, drill it, and tap it, and run it back up the road and install it. So that's kind of the success of my business. How I'm not drawing something CAD and sending it down to Boston to get milled, you know what I mean? I'm waiting 6 to 8 weeks. That's usually not how I do things. Not that I can't.
Did Mass Road Lumber tell us that they were gonna give us some hinge jam stock and extra hinges for the hinges that have bent? I didn't see them over there. I saw
No, there are
threshold
no-
stock and
There are no extra hinges there, but I was told that
I was there with you.
if any of them are bent, to let them know
Okay.
the replacement. The only things that are over there are the doors and the new threshold
Yeah.
material. The 3 of the thresholds have to be replaced. The handicap threshold was put down as an aluminum threshold, so that would stay the
Mhm.
same.
It's also commonplace for me to back up my number with a scope of work, just so you guys can sit down and compare. I mean, that's pretty common. So, I just, it's my world, I'm used to, having to defend my thought process, because a lot of this stuff in the design build world, I'm not gonna say we're making up as we go along, but pretty much do, right? So,
Yeah.
gotta
See,
explain
we
that.
are, and I know you're familiar with it, that as a government body, we need to have multiple bids all the time.
Right.
And one of the things we struggle with is the town sometimes is reluctant to pay for plans because, that's kind of a nebulous thing. We'll pay for the brick and mortar or the boards and the labor, but to pay up front for the plans. So, that's, when you talk design build, that's kind of where you're coming from with that. But even something like those doors, we have 3 different contractors, which we'd have to take a look at them. What we need is some common ground as far as we know that they're all offering the same quality of support for those heavy doors. And so, that's where we're at now. We've got to put together a proposal so that we're looking at the same thing from everybody's bids.
Yeah, you just can't say, just do it right, please.
Right. Because everybody's.
Unfortunately. That's what we live in.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be in this predicament if that were the case.
No.
Okay.
Very
So,
good.
Thanks a lot.
all right, thank you. Have a nice
Thank
night.
you for coming in.
Thanks for
Any other new business?
I have a few things to sign, if you don't mind. The health officer and the deputy health officer appointment form.
That's right.
Kelly Chip,
Is that all of us or just Tom?
all of you. And then the investment policy for 2017, it's the same, just the dates can change really.
This is the same. Beth, we're signing this as a continuation of our same policy.
Yes, it is, yeah, the treasurer just changed the date.
Do we need an approval of the board before we sign?
Probably for all of them too, the appointment as well.
Yeah.
I move that we appoint Kelly Dearborn-Luce as our health officer and Chip Meany as our deputy health officer.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I move that we adopt the investment policy as printed, which would be a continuation of the policy that we have followed in past years. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you have any ayes from down here?
Aye.
I was signing.
Oh, one other thing, I had a busy Friday. Took, a ride up to see the town forest that you were talking about, John,
Which one?
the Poor Farm,
Yeah.
and I'm in total agreement with you. That, I mean, if somebody lets a match go like this, it's gonna go everywhere. Pardon me?
I said, I don't know what you were discussing, but I've seen it and I know what you're gonna say.
It's a mess.
It's a slash
It's
job.
horrible.
Never saw anything so bad in my life.
Swedish logging, they call it.
But
Well-
on the, to go 100 degrees the other way, 2 weeks ago, I went up on Chevy Hill,
Mhm.
where they did large-scale chipping operation on what used to be our property. It's 180%. You can walk through that property. I still say they took too much off, but as far as clean up afterwards, the outfit that did it did a darn good job. But before that,
Well,
The last 3 or 4 jobs they've done,
they've since
had
cleaned
was
it.
they
It is a total mess.
slashed.
You cannot even walk
No.
without stepping on something.
You used to be able
You
to
couldn't
walk
walk
farm,
through
go
kiosks.
hunting up there, walk through there, and you can't walk through there anyway.
No, not anywhere.
Well, why don't we have the town forester come in and explain their methodology? A couple of years ago, probably more than that, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, they did a lot of cutting
Okay.
up in the Eastman conservation area in North Weare. And what they did there is they cut swaths through it, but then all of the smaller stuff, not all, but a good share of it, they chipped up. But I was concerned then because to me, it's selective cutting is going in and saying, well, let's take out this one, this one, and this one. Not let's take out that whole area right down to almost
Yeah.
nothing. So I think what we need is an explanation of why they do it the way they do it.
Mhm.
You know,
Can I make a suggestion too, that the rest of the board go and look at it?
which
Poor
one-
Farm?
Poor Farm.
I've been down there.
I
John,
mean,
let me know.
It's just all branches
Yeah, it's
everywhere.
terrible.
And there's a whole big brush pile in
Mhm.
one spot in the middle,
Stumps.
You know,
Yeah.
Foot tall.
and the stumps are 7 feet tall.
you know, the other thing is that you'll never harvest that again. It'll be.
Oh, no, that'd be
it'll
25,
200
30 years before you
It'll be
ever
more
get
than that.
cut off
It'll be
that.
more than that.
Yeah, it
What
will
they
be.
always used to do, I think Bob Todd was the forester in Ware at one point. He used to come in and he used to do a selective cut, and maybe they take out 500,000 board feet off a good sized parcel of land. But you know, in 25 years, you go back in and you do it again,
Mm-hmm.
you have
You should
have
be able
steady
to,
growth.
yeah, you should be able to selective cut every 10 to 15 years. Do a selective cut.
Yeah,
For a town log to be chip cut, that's just,
and there's no money, the town's
Right,
not getting
and
any
that's
money
it.
for it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the lowest paying return that you're gonna get on lumber and wood today, is
Mhm.
chip cutting it. It's
Yeah,
nothing, it's zero.
cordwood's
Zero.
going out for
And-
chip price and it's just.
I think that
And
Yeah.
then take a load of logs in, it's 1,100 sit pines, I think it's around $1,100 for a load.
Hmm.
I think 6,000,
Right,
7,000 feet.
just, why don't we get somebody in here so that we
Mm.
can talk it out and know, you know,
Absolutely.
what it is that's driving the engine out there as far as the types. Because that sounds like it's a different, type of operation than what they did on the Eastman property, because they did clean that up pretty well, like pulling out the small stuff and shipping it. It was discouraging to me because I go out there a lot, and it certainly changed the atmosphere of the forest. But it doesn't sound like, out there, it didn't leave the same mess, it was just that it was pretty much clear-cut strips. So why don't we contact the Conservation Commission and have them bring the forester in and, you know, answer whatever questions we have.
You find out too, Tom, from the conservation committee, what lot would pay $2,500 to have someone else come in and clean the a lot up. If that's the case, I guess we need to not let that logger come back to future harvest.
Why don't we just ask them that at the same time? If Beth, if you could put that in the notes.
I don't know if the forest would know that, or just, I think the conservation committee wanted that.
It wasn't that many years ago that the town was adamant that they weren't gonna have skidders in ruining the ground, they were gonna put draft houses and pull the logs out. And that was done over by the
Town shed.
town
needs to-
sheds back in the 70s and 80s. That was all logged with the horses, so you wouldn't make a mess out of land.
Back in the 70s, I was working for Dave Titcomb, who was on the Conservation Committee. And I helped him write the contract for the town forest. Wintertime operation, trees could only be, I think it was 32 feet long, and that was it with a skidder. You could not do anything other than wintertime operation when the ground froze.
I think that the town is really getting nothing for the, like, all that wood. You're selling it for pennies on the dollar, pennies.
I don't know. I have no knowledge of that at all, except for just the visual.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm going on, and again, I think we need to ask why. And I don't necessarily even mean that as a negative, but just we need an explanation of why is it done this way or that way.
Well, the town should have some background. We, as a group, the board ought to know what Patna's paying per thousand for timber, whether it's pine, oak, hemlock, whatever. Because when they go in and take a thing and slash it all down and just chip it, you're getting paid nothing for it.
Right.
But the town could be making quite a lot of money.
Yeah, well, in the Eastman property, they took out a lot of logs. You know, there's a big landing area just up that road out of East Weare, the other side of the bridge. They used that as their access, and they cleared a big landing area and had mountains of logs that they took, but then the underbrush and the limbs and things were ground up, and they took those out with trailers.
Yeah, that's fine if they wanna pick that stuff out, but I think your log, we need to go back to selective cutting
They give me
stuff.
chip price for logs and cordwood.
And I can't even imagine why they're chipping up these great big beautiful logs.
Yeah, I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
make any sense.
Tom, can I present this question as a question to the forester or the conservation committee? Could we find out, this would help John Lawton's question about future easements on town-funded lots. If we have the forester blaze the hole as he works, he should be able to blaze sections of the town forest. So pretty much anybody would be able to tell if they want to make a trail around this thing.
Oh, they do.
Certain parts now are done up at the Poor Farm.
I'll
Right.
tell you, they blaze it. That was another one of my issues, because my property, and again, it's really not a public issue, but my property abuts the conservation area, and I walked the boundary of my property, and all the trees were covered these big yellow splotches. And it's like, that's not really what I want to see. There was a temptation to
That is a traditional blaze, but it's.
black spray paint, but I didn't do it. Yeah, but so I know they do that. It's faded somewhat now, but
But that would get more double duty out of our forester.
okay. We all set on that issue for right now until we get somebody else
For
on
now.
that?
Yeah, for now.
Uh,
For now.
Anything else on the new business? or other
Yeah,
business?
I'd like to bring up something about awarding the bids last week. I mean, there was a comment made that we always go by the department head recommendation, and then the very next bid, that was thrown out the window and something else was done. I think we need to be a little more consistent with how we do these awarding the bids and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know if we're always gonna go by the recommendation. But where the recommendation of having the paving and the reclaim done by the same company.
Oh, I'm not, that's fine, but I'm just, you know,
If we,
I just hope the town doesn't get bamboozled on a couple of them. That's all.
yeah, John, I don't think we can just say
But-
we're always gonna go by that, otherwise, what's the point of our being here?
Well, I understand that.
But when it's close and you know the contractor, then it makes sense.
Right.
You wanna bring that up for discussion when Benji's here, or just be okay with it?
I'm good.
One more time, other business. Move to adjourn.
Second?
Anybody not in favor of that?
Yeah. Yes.
You are in favor of it or not?